Alright guys, so before I start this video, I just want to encourage you, before you start your school day, before you start your work day, that you pray and that you ask God to give you the tools that you need to have a successful work day that day. Ask God to give you the tools to help your students in every possible way that you can that school day. Ask God to give you the right words to use when talking to your students, when talking to your colleagues, because without Him, nothing is possible. So we need to talk, because let's face it, there's a possibility that many of us will not be teaching in our classrooms at the start of the school year this fall. And that means we're going to have to go to virtual learning. Now, in my previous video, I discussed the top 5 routines and procedures that I feel like you should teach on the very first day of school. Now that's for if you're starting the school year off in your classroom with your students ready to go. But I know many of us, there is a possibility we may not be starting in our classrooms. Lord, I hope we are, because I feel like teaching is meant to be for in the classroom. But just in case we don't, I'm giving you some tips on management tips that you can use for the first day of virtual learning. You asked, so you shall receive. Now, let's start with tip number 1. I think this is pretty much a no-brainer. I don't know, maybe, I don't know, but I feel like this should be the very first tip that is taught on the first day of your virtual learning teaching day. Number 1, how are those students going to enter into your classroom? Now, for me, I have used Zoom in the past when I'm with my firsties all together and we're all, doing our thing together. Some of you may use other softwares that are out there. I know for me, though, we used Zoom. So you have to teach your students, how are they going to enter into that meeting to start learning with you? What is that going to look like? What is it going to sound like? This is something that you should be thinking about. When your kids enter into that meeting, are they able to just start talking to each other? Are you expecting them to come in and just sit quietly until you get everyone started? How are you going to do that? So for me, what my plan is, and I hope I don't have to do this because I really want to be in my classroom, but if I have to do it this way, this is how it's got to be. So what I would do is I would teach my students, when you come into the Zoom meeting, Miss May is going to say, "Good morning," and I'll say their name. And then I expect them, so like I would say, "Good morning, Tiffany." Then I expect for Tiffany to greet me back with, "Good morning, Miss May." That's the expectation. And for a couple of days, it's going to be kind of awkward for them and they're going to be kind of shy. But the expectation is to smile, wave, and greet back with kindness. This is not the expectation. "Good morning, Tiffany." Good morning. That's not the expectation. You have to have eye contact, and I would explain that to my kids. You need to have eye contact, a smile on your face, you're waving, and you're saying good morning with my name after it. Now, I will say, the first few times, kids are going to be kind of shy. Kids are going to be, and I get that. But after about 3 times of doing this, then if the child still isn't doing what you're expecting them to do, then that's when you hold a private Zoom meeting with that child and with that parent. You have to have those expectations, because if you let things slide, because the other kids are seeing it because they're on the screen, so they feel like, well, if Tiffany doesn't have to greet properly, then I'm not going to greet properly. You know what I mean? So you have to set that expectation very high, and if you have to address it, you have to address it. I would not address it in the whole Zoom meeting. "Tiffany, you did not greet me the correct way, and this is how you're supposed to greet me. Tomorrow, you're going to greet me the correct way." Pump your brakes. That's not the way to handle the situation, okay? 1, you got an attitude. 2, you're embarrassing the child in front of everybody, okay? So we have to make sure that we talk to these children with respect and with kindness. You have to be respectful. But at the same token, you can create a Zoom meeting, you know, where it's just you and that child and their parents, you know, and just say, hey, the expectation, it would be the same way in my classroom if we were in a classroom. But the expectation is every morning when I greet with a hello, I need you to greet back with a hello. That's just the expectation. And leave it at that. You know, whatever you do, don't let parents try to run over you and take over how you want things to be done. This is the expectation. This is what I'm expecting. Boom. Done. Okay? So number 1, I know that kind of went a little longer than I wanted to. How are those children going to enter into your class meetings? What is that going to look like? So you need to establish that with them. All right. So next, let's talk about distractions, because let's face it, home is a little bit different than being in school. So you might see some distractions that you might not want to see. For example, kids eating during the lesson time, kids, you know, sitting, having their siblings around, pets around, all these distractions around. We need to establish, you know, what it looks like and what it sounds like when we're there to learn. Because if we were at school, brothers and sisters wouldn't be around. You're not snacking on stuff, you know, when it's not the right time, yada 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 yada. So I would explain to them and set the tone for, you know, siblings. You know, I know we're proud of our siblings and our, you know, pets, but there's a time and a place for that. Not saying that they wouldn't be able to ever put their sibling in a Zoom or their pet, but when there's a time and a place for it. So you need to establish it and make sure that they understand that this is not show and tell brother and sister or show and tell a pet of ours, not at this time. And that you let them know when they can do that. But most of the time when we're learning, it's just us learning, nobody else around. Of course, you know, people are going to be, I'm sure, in arm's length, but you get my drift. Make sure you nip that in the bud about distractions when you guys are all together on a Zoom meeting. So entering the Zoom, distractions. Then the next one would be attention. How are your students going to get your attention? I know there's some programs that have, and I don't even know if Zoom has it, but or if a child needs your attention, there's like a raise your hand button. I need to look more into that. But for me, it's like they'll give me some type of a signal. Both, you know, hands on your ears, or touch your nose, or hand over heart, or a heart, or a thumbs up, or something fun that you want to, you know, give your students that signal, like, hey, Miss May, I have a question. There's always a difference between a question or a comment, because you could be teaching a lesson, and bless their hearts, but it happens, and they raise their hand, and you ask them a question, and they raise their hand, and they're like, my dog was jumping over our neighbor's fence. And you're thinking to yourself, what in the heck does this have to do with the lesson? So you kind of have to explain there's the difference between a question and a compliment, or a question and a comment. So you can always teach that, but then teach your students a signal, a sign. I mean, you can have them hold up something, whatever your creative heart desires, or just a simple raise their hand. But you don't want them to be shouting out to each other or shouting out to you, you know, questions that they may have. So make sure you establish some type of an attention signal to let you know that they have a question. So and then you can even have one for a signal for a question and a signal for a comment. You know, maybe they want to give a comment to someone who said something like, I thought that was a real, you know, a comment or a compliment. You know, you can have two different signals, you know. So you want it as easy and simple as possible, and you want as much structure is possible too. Like things that you do in the classroom, you know, you can do online too. It's just that you guys aren't all together, you know, in one happy setting, like physically. All right, so my last, let's see, I talked about attention. I talked about coming to a Zoom meeting, distractions. All right, now we need to talk about kids that randomly just get up and leave, you know, because they saw something fall and they want to go pick it up, or their baby sister or brother is over here and they have to go get them, and you know, just ran, or I gotta use the restroom, or oh, I want to go to the kitchen and get something to drink. Like, you have to discuss and talk about, you know, just randomly leaving. Like, that's not acceptable. You know, you have to explain to them, okay, if you need to leave, you know, maybe that's another signal they can give you, you know, so if they need to leave. Now, when I teach my kids physically in the classroom about leaving, they know when I'm teaching a lesson, they're not getting up and leaving. Like, I'm teaching a lesson to them. They need to be there for and present for the lesson. I often talk about that, and I talk about that a lot in my classroom management series. So make sure you explain to them, like, the expectation is to be there, sitting there learning with you, and not to be leaving, you know, the lesson, because they could be missing out on something very, very important. But that emergencies happen, you know, things happen where you do have to get up and leave. And what I would do is teach them so they're not shouting, Miss May, I have to go to the bathroom. Miss May, my sister is crawling over here, I have to go. Instead of doing all that, you need to have a specific signal for, I have to go and leave for the moment. Not X out of the Zoom meeting or, you know, your class meeting or lesson, but just, you know, I need to step to the side for a second. You need to have some type of a signal for that, so that when you see that, you can just nod or whatever, give them the signal back that, okay, it's okay for you to go and do what you need to do. Okay, so that's what I would teach virtually on the first day of school. I would just kind of talk about that. You can even, you know, talk about transitions, because you can still play music for them if you're moving on to something else, or if you need their attention, if you need everybody's attention, you know, you need to teach, you know, when I need your attention, everybody, this is what I'm going to do. So for me, I'm going to play a song, and whatever that song is, they know, because I can share my screen with them too, and I can play Tour the States for them. Y'all know that's my favorite jam, one of my favorite jams, Tour the States for them. So that's something that you have to think of. So I would be thinking about those things for the first day of virtual learning. 1, how are they going to enter into your lessons and your meetings and you guys are talking? How are they going to enter in every single day? 2, how are they going to get your attention? If they have a question or if they have a comment, how are they going to get your attention? Think about how you want them to get your attention. Make sure it's the same way all the time and it's consistent, so it's a routine so they understand. 3, distractions. Talking to them about distractions. You know, what the expectation is for those types of distractions. And then 4, randomly leaving the classroom, or this, you know, the virtual classroom, just randomly leaving. What is the expectations with that? What are you expecting? And you know, what are you going to expect? What are you going to accept? And what are you not going to accept? You need to be thinking about that. And then lastly, for virtual learning that first day, what I would teach is, how are you all going to leave that meeting? Are you going to leave that meeting by saying goodbye to everyone? Are you going to leave that meeting by giving each individual a compliment? How are you going to leave your meeting? Are they going to tell you something? Like, how are you leaving that meeting with them? You know, you have to establish that too. So those are the 5 things that I would teach on the first day of virtual learning. And like I said, I pray and hope we don't have to, but I would rather everyone be safe than sorry. But just in case we have to go to virtual learning on that very first day of school, these are some things that you can teach your students. So I hope this helps you guys. I love y'all. Thank you so much for your love, your kindness, your support. I love reading your comments. Y'all, I don't know what's going on with the comment section, but it's like when I reply, I'm able to just know that I read every comment, and so that you know that I've read it, a heart by it. But then when I go to comment to everybody, it's like some comments get shown, my replies get shown, and then like maybe 2 days later it shows that I haven't replied to the comment, and I did reply to the comment. So if you guys can let me know in the description box below. I've tried to reply to as many as I can, if not all, but let me know if you're getting my replies back, because if not, then I need to hit up YouTube about that, because it's just all of a sudden been like this. I've just recently noticed the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, this is strange. I just commented to this person because, you know, some comments really stand out and you remember, and I'm like, hey, I just commented a couple of days ago on that. So let me know if you're able to see my replies back to you. Okay, until next time, guys, don't forget to always pray, because God will truly always make a way. I love you guys. Mwah. Bye.